In a remote location, far away from the civilized world, a group of cave divers gets ready for the adventure of a lifetime. The expedition team was a medley of experienced individuals, each with their unique skill set. Leading them was Jack, a towering figure standing head and shoulders above most. His physique was testament to years of rugged outdoor expeditions, muscles honed from scaling treacherous terrains and swimming against strong underwater currents. The beard that adorned his face was kept short, but it was enough to hide some scars from past adventures. His discerning eyes missed nothing, always analyzing, always leading. Then there was Anna, seemingly fragile at first glance with her slender frame, but looks were deceiving. Her brunette locks framed a face of steely determination. She had overcome challenges that would have deterred many twice her size, her spirit proving that strength wasn't just physical. Her nimble fingers and sharp wit had gotten the team out of more than one tricky situation. Leo, the brain behind the operation, was always seen behind thick glasses that magnified thoughtful eyes, forever curious. He had an encyclopedic knowledge of caves and rock formations. His fascination with geology wasn't just academic. He had a deep respect for the earth and its mysteries. Often lost in thought, he was the one who would spend nights poring over cave maps, ensuring their path was accurate. Claire was the embodiment of energy and enthusiasm. With her sun-kissed blonde hair and an infectious laugh, she was the light of the group, often diffusing tension with her humor. But when it came to diving, she was unparalleled in her skill, making the most challenging underwater caves seem like child's play. Elijah, the enigma of the group, had more experience than all of them combined. Age had done nothing to diminish his wiry strength. His salt and pepper hair hinted at countless tales of adventure. Although new to the team, his reputation preceded him. Together, they found themselves at the precipice of their next great adventure, the gaping entrance of the foreboding Devil's Maw Cave looming before them. The world of sunlight and open air seemed to vanish as the cave's darkness enveloped them, marking the beginning of their descent into the unknown. As they descended deeper into the cave, the outside world seemed a distant memory. The omnipresent sound of dripping water echoed, each drop resonating with the vastness of the subterranean world they were in. The chilling cold, not just from the water, but from the sheer volume of rock and earth surrounding them, pressed upon their bodies, reminding them of how far they had strayed from the surface. It felt as though the weight of the world was literally bearing down on them, creating an oppressive sense of isolation. The reality of their situation was clear. In this labyrinthine network of caves, they were truly alone. Jack led the way, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the inky blackness, revealing nature's untouched wonders. The light refracted off clear pools, making the water appear as if it was studded with stars. The vast underwater caverns unveiled their splendors as Jack's flashlight played over them, showing off iridescent blues and greens. Towering stalactites hung from the cavern ceilings like nature's chandeliers, while stalagmites rose from the floor in shimmering formations. The cave's haunting beauty was a breathtaking contrast to its chilling atmosphere. But it was Leo, ever the observant geologist, who first noticed something unusual. Along the cave walls, among the natural grooves and fissures, were deliberate markings, symbols etched into the stone, seemingly ancient and faded with time. These weren't the random scratches of a passing creature. They were methodical, intricate, and held a purpose. Elijah, upon seeing them, was immediately drawn. He traced his fingers over the indentations, his usually distant eyes sharpening with recognition. "These symbols," he murmured almost to himself, "date back millennia. They are eerily similar to those associated with ancient underworld rituals." The group exchanged uneasy glances. While the caves promised exploration and discovery, this new revelation hinted at mysteries darker than they had anticipated. Further into the abyss they went, with the vast darkness of the cave enveloping them. The eerie silence was only occasionally broken by the sound of their equipment or the distant drip of water, but as they ventured deeper, Anna felt an inexplicable drop in temperature, a chill that seemed to seep right into her bones. It wasn't the usual coldness one might expect in such an environment. It was something more unnerving, as if the cave itself was alive and watching them. Then came the whispers, soft, indistinct voices that seemed to rise from the very bowels of the earth. Anna froze, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. The voices weren't discernible as words, but more as murmurs, like the hushed conversations of spirits long forgotten. She turned to her teammates, her eyes wide with fear. "Did anyone hear that?" she stammered, trying to grasp onto some form of rational explanation. Claire, always the one to find humor even in tense situations, attempted to diffuse the growing anxiety. "Probably just cave ghosts trying to tell us where the best stalactites are," she quipped, her lips curling into a nervous smile. But despite her playful tone, her eyes darted around, reflecting the same unease everyone felt. It was clear that what Anna had heard wasn't just a figment of her imagination. The cave held secrets, and the team was quickly realizing they might not be alone in their descent into the depths. The once cohesive unit of explorers began to fray at the edges, their camaraderie replaced by suspicion and fear. Each echoing drip, every distant murmur became a source of anxiety, and trust among them was eroding as quickly as the cave walls around them. Jack, usually the calm and composed leader, was the first to show visible cracks in his demeanor. His face, usually taut with determination, now bore the lines of stress. He glared at Leo, accusingly. "You said you'd studied the maps. This was supposed to be a straight path," he snapped when they found themselves at an unexpected impasse. Leo, defensive and equally tense, shot back. "I did study them. The cave structure. It's like it's changing on its own." Claire's transformation was perhaps the most jarring. The lively diver who would often entertain the group with her anecdotes now seemed to be in a world of her own. Her gaze would frequently drift to the shadowy corners of the cave, and she'd murmur incoherently, as if having silent conversations with the very walls that confined them. In the midst of this growing unease, Anna stumbled upon an old waterlogged journal, its pages yellowed with age. As she carefully leafed through the brittle pages, she uncovered the harrowing account of a previous team of spelunkers. Their journey mirrored the current team's experience, from the awe of the cave's beauty to the unsettling feeling of being watched. But what truly sent shivers down Anna's spine was the last entry, scribbled hastily as if the writer was in a hurry, or worse, running out of time. "The cave doesn't want us to leave. It's alive, and it's hungry." The chilling revelation, rather than uniting the team, only exacerbated their fears. The walls seemed to close in, and every sound became a potential threat. The realization that they might not be the first to experience the cave's malevolence, and certainly might not be the last, weighed heavily on their minds. As the group cautiously approached the edge of the cavern, they were met with an otherworldly sight. The pit itself pulsed with an eerie reddish glow, its depths obscured by a swirling mist that seemed to dance with malevolent intent. The vast expanse of the void was unlike anything they had ever seen, its size dwarfing their sense of reality. Anna, clutching her diving gear tightly, tried to gauge the depth, but her torch's beam was swallowed whole, as if the abyss was insatiable. The heat emanating from it was suffocating, contrasting starkly with the cave's otherwise frigid temperature. It felt like standing at the mouth of a colossal furnace. What truly set everyone's nerves on edge, however, were the sounds. Far below, tortured wails and cries echoed, reverberating through the cavern with such intensity that it was hard to believe they were not right beside them. Each scream sounded like a soul in torment, their anguish palpable in the thick, oppressive air. Leo, always the logical thinker, tried to find a scientific explanation. "It could be a geothermal vent releasing heated gases and causing these auditory hallucinations," he suggested, though his shaky voice betrayed his own doubts. But Jack, his eyes wide and reflecting the pit's ominous glow, was convinced otherwise. The man who had led countless expeditions, who had faced danger without batting an eye, seemed truly shaken. He leaned closer to the group, his voice barely above a hushed tone. "This isn't any geothermal activity. Look at those symbols around the pit, the same ones we saw earlier. They're not just cave carvings. They're a warning." His gaze fixed on the swirling abyss, he whispered with a chilling certainty, This place, it's a portal to hell. With every step Claire took towards the pit, the temperature seemed to rise, and the eerie glow of the abyss was reflected in her now glassy eyes. The air grew heavy with an oppressive energy, and the very walls of the cave seemed to pulse in rhythm with the distant tortured screams. The shadows cast by their torches danced menacingly, making the scene even more surreal. The once vivacious diver was now almost in a trance, her soft murmurs growing in volume as she recited the unfamiliar chants. Each syllable seemed to reverberate within the cavern, adding to the cacophony of wails. It was as if the cave itself was responding to her call. Elijah, who had previously kept to the shadows of the group, now took on a dominant presence. With slow, deliberate steps, he joined Claire at the edge of the pit. The revelation of his intentions sent shockwaves through the group. The wiry, salt-and-pepper-haired man, who had claimed to be just another spelunking enthusiast, was now unveiled as a harbinger of doom. Anna, panic evident in her eyes, tried to reason with them. "Elijah, what are you doing? This isn't some myth or legend. We need to get out." But Elijah's eyes, once curious and benign, now burned with a fervor that chilled them to their bones. "Every so often, the spirits of the abyss grow restless," he began, his voice deep and resonating. "Their hunger needs to be sated, their demands met. I've spent years searching for this place, guided by the whispers of the ancients." He turned his gaze to Jack, Leo, and Anna, his smile chilling in its cruelty. "And now, with all of you here, the tribute is complete. In exchange for your souls, the spirits will bestow upon me unimaginable power, allowing me to bridge the worlds of the living and the dead." The very ground seemed to shudder in response, as if acknowledging Elijah's sinister proclamation. The once cohesive team was now fractured, trapped in a nightmarish scenario of betrayal and impending doom. Claire, her once radiant blue eyes now pitch black, lunged at Anna with a ferocity that belied her slender frame. Her fingers, unnaturally elongated and claw-like, aimed for Anna's throat, while guttural growls emitted from deep within her. Anna, taken by surprise, fought back desperately, her panic evident as she tried to fend off her possessed friend. The very cavern seemed to amplify their gasps, screams, and the sound of their scuffle, adding to the overall sense of chaos. Jack, despite the weight of the realization of their dire situation, reacted instantly. Using his muscular build, he charged at the entangled duo, managing to pry Claire away from Anna. He held on to Claire, trying to restrain her flailing limbs, her strength seemingly amplified by whatever dark force had taken hold of her. "Snap out of it, Claire," he shouted, desperation evident in his voice. In the midst of this turmoil, Leo, with his glasses askew and face ashen, tried to find an escape. Panic had clouded his usually analytical mind, and the geologist made a split-second decision to head back the way they had come. But as he neared the ominous pit, dark, smoke-like tendrils began to emerge, reaching out for him. They moved with a predatory swiftness, coiling around his legs and pulling him towards the abyss. Leo's terrified screams echoed throughout the cave as he struggled against the shadowy grasp, trying in vain to free himself from the relentless pull of the abyss. The rest of the team watched in horror, paralyzed by the unfolding nightmare before them. The cave, once a place of exploration and adventure, had turned into a realm of unimaginable terror. Elijah, his once calm demeanor now replaced by an intensity that was almost manic, began chanting in an archaic tongue. The very air around him seemed to thicken, vibrating with an energy that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. As his voice rose in fervor, shadowy apparitions began to materialize around him, their forms indistinct and constantly shifting, like smoke caught in a breeze. Their wails, a cacophony of anguish and rage, resonated through the cave. The walls of the cave, previously cold and inert, now seemed to come alive. They pulsated in rhythm with Elijah's chants, as if the very heart of the cave was beating. Luminescent symbols, similar to the ones Leo had noticed earlier, began to glow with an eerie light, casting the cavern in a sickly green hue. Anna, her face streaked with dirt and sweat, took a deep breath to steady herself. She could feel the weight of the malevolent force bearing down on her, but she refused to be defeated. Drawing from her reservoir of inner strength, she stepped forward, her eyes locked onto Elijah's. "This ends now, Elijah," she declared, her voice unwavering. Elijah's eyes, now a deep shade of crimson, met Anna's gaze. The intensity between them was palpable. What followed was not a physical confrontation, but a battle of wills. Anna, drawing upon her determination and the bond she shared with her team, tried to disrupt Elijah's connection with the spirits. She began reciting verses she remembered from the journal they'd found, hoping to counteract his malevolent summoning. The cavern seemed to amplify their standoff. The chants and counterchants echoed, creating a surreal symphony of light and shadow, hope and despair. The outcome of this battle would determine the fate of not just the team, but perhaps the very balance between the world of the living and the underworld. Using every ounce of strength and determination she possessed, Anna lunged at Elijah. Their struggle was intense and brief, and with a sudden forceful shove, Anna sent the cultist careening into the very abyss he had revered. As he fell, a look of shock and betrayal flashed across Elijah's face, his chants cut short by the yawning darkness below. The immediate aftermath was cataclysmic. The ground beneath them shook violently, as if the cave itself was rebelling against the disturbance. Stalactites dislodged from the ceiling, crashing into the waters below. The glowing symbols on the walls flickered erratically, casting eerie, dancing shadows that added to the chaos. The pit, which had previously radiated an oppressive warmth, now emitted a blinding light, rapidly contracting and pulling inwards. It was as if the very fabric of reality was repairing itself, sealing away the hellish dimension from the mortal realm. Jack, his leadership instincts kicking in, grabbed both Anna and Claire. "We need to move now," he shouted over the deafening roar of the cave. Claire, dazed but no longer under the malevolent influence, nodded in agreement. The three of them, supporting each other, began their perilous trek back to the cave's entrance. The path was treacherous, with the cave continuing to convulse around them. But the thought of the fresh air and the world outside propelled them forward. Behind them, the agonized cries of Leo, who had been consumed by the shadowy hands, and the fading screams of Elijah echoed, a haunting reminder of the cave's dark secrets. By the time they emerged into the daylight, the trio was battered and exhausted, but alive. They had escaped the clutches of the underworld, but the scars of their ordeal would stay with them forever. The entrance to the Devil's Maw cave collapsed shortly after, sealing its horrors and ensuring that no other unsuspecting souls would ever stumble upon its cursed depths again. Emerging from the cold embrace of the cave, the survivors, Jack, Anna, and Claire, felt the warm rays of the sun on their faces. They took deep breaths, the crispness of the fresh air in stark contrast to the damp, stifling atmosphere they had just escaped. The immediate world outside felt alien, as if they'd been in the cave for lifetimes, not hours. They turned back, watching in a mix of relief and horror as the entrance to the Devil's Maw crumbled and caved in. Massive boulders and dirt filled the once foreboding entrance, rendering it indistinguishable from the rest of the hillside. If nature had its way, in a few years, there would be no sign that a cave had ever existed there. Each of them, in silent agreement, knew they could never reveal what transpired within those dark chambers. The world was not ready for such truths, nor would they ever be. And so, with heavy hearts, they vowed to keep their harrowing experience a secret, confining it to the shadowy recesses of their memories. Yet, as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the weight of their expedition continued to haunt them. Nightmares plagued their sleep. Every shadow seemed to lurk with malevolent intent, and every silence echoed with the faint whispers of the cave. They often caught themselves glancing over their shoulders, as if expecting to see the wrathful spirits that had once pursued them. Their shared experience bound them together, yet also drove a wedge between them. Each was a living reminder of the cave's horrors. They gradually distanced themselves from one another, seeking solace in solitude. The chilling lesson of the Devil's Maw stayed with them. Some doors, especially those that led to realms beyond human comprehension, were never meant to be opened.